oftentimes there's no way to framework yourself out of a problem. It's just doing the work, putting in the time, and trusting the process.
Basic, quick, fast questions. We try to make it as rapid as possible. The first one, what is Staging Labs to you in 3 words?
Secure, reliable, and trusted.
Okay, 3 very interesting words to go with. Describe to me the partnership with Halborn in a sentence.
A shared commitment. It was a relationship building exercise to build trust and credibility, not just for our project, for the space overall.
Awesome. What piece of advice would you give to other builders in the same space right now?
So I was a VC for a number of years, and I would invest in a lot of founders, and I find that the advice I give has changed a lot. And that's a whole story on its own. But really, like, building a company, not just in Web3, but any company, is not a sprint. It's not like a marathon, but it's like an odyssey. And so it's not about like hunkering down, but more so the point I want to make is you need to savor the ride. You need to savor the process. Like every trial, every win, like really savor the moment. Because when you're going to look back years from now, it's not necessarily, the big wins that you're going to remember only. It's all the trials that you went through, and it helped you become who you are today. Everything is happening for you, as opposed to you.
I love that. So be in love with the process rather than the destination itself.
The big cliche, but it really, I mean, once you go into these shows, it's like it really matters, because the problems are not necessarily hard to overcome. You just need to push through and continue.
Okay. Yeah. And what's your favorite Web3 podcast? Could also be a book.
Podcast is Bankless, which is a bit of a typical answer, but I think a book, one interesting one that people might not expect, is Ministry of the Future, which is not coined as a typical crypto book, but it talks about the use of a carbon coin and carbon sequestration as a means to be a more valuable commodity than the USD. And I found that to be, a bit of a utopian take on crypto, but it does serve as like a really strong, like light to walk towards.
Great. As I'm hearing your background, and you did wear a lot of multiple hats, and especially looking at it from a VC angle, you probably had lots of opinions, right? So is that something in your own career, in your own Web3 career, that you feel you could have learned better and that you know now?
There's always things you can do better. But I think from an investor point of view, this is less Web3, but an investor has a portfolio of risks, right? They take a bet on hundreds of companies. And so they're not in the trenches with one particular company, one particular team. And so the level of commitment, the level of exposure to like change is a whole other game. And even though oftentimes I think, like, going back to my advice, giving it to founders, it might be the right advice, but I might not have shared it with the right context, and not with the same level of empathy, And so it's very easy to say, take this framework, run with it, and go fix it. Let's say the framework of warm intros versus cold outreach. Just do warm intros. Much easier said than done. There's so much nuance. There's so much context. And so as a founder, I think I've now gathered the opinion that you should take multiple people's advice, yes, but only triangulate based on that and see what, based on the 10 people giving you advice, is in common, and what you want to reject and what you want to accept. Don't just take advice for face value, because there's so much context in each situation. And oftentimes there's no way to framework yourself out of a problem. It's just doing the work, putting in the time, and trusting the process.
It's the process, and of course, everyone's journey is different, so they have to take it
from their point of view. Very hard to say you should do this. No. There's so many different life moments that happen, so that you can say that. It's contextual.